So I have a really neat aquarium setup to show you today. It has 3 species of fish in it. 2 of them are very, very rare. One's not rare, but it's a really neat form, a really high quality form of a common species. So the first one we're going to talk about today is the purple sailfin gudgeon, Microphysogobio tafangensis. Very rare, only been in the hobby since 2020 and in very small numbers. I'm excited to talk to you about that fish. The second one that we have that you almost never see, in fact, this is the first time I've ever seen it, and I've been doing this 30 plus years, is Erromyzon compactus, the demon eye Hillstream loach. Beautiful, super rare loach with nice red dots down the side. We're going to talk to you about that one too. And then the common species in here are these red cherry barbs, but they're not just your standard red cherry barbs. These are long fin red cherry barbs, and these were bred and raised by European breeders who've been working this line for decades to have really nice reds and an impressive, nice uniform finnage that doesn't look all raggedy and gross like you can get in some of the long fin cherry barb species. So we're going to talk about all those fish, but first I want to tell you about this aquarium. This is a 40-gallon breeder. I really like the 40-gallon breeder because it's 18 inches from the front pane of glass to the back pane of glass, and that gives you lots of room here. I can put a lot of rocks and other things and have enough depth here that there's still space for this fish to swim out in front. So that's why I like this size tank quite a bit. You can do a lot in a 40-gallon breeder. It's kind of the biggest tank they have where you don't have a cross brace across the top of the tank, so you're free to work in the tank without dealing with a cross brace, which is also very nice. It's a very simple setup. It's got some rock work in there for the Hillstream loaches. It has some slate across the back just to give it, so you aren't looking at a black backdrop the whole time. So you have some natural rock to look at there. And then it's got a simple Aquarium Co-op sponge filter with the easy flow extension on it. I love this extension because it gets really nice flow, lots of water's going through there. And the species in here, both the gudgeon and the Hillstream loach, really like high flow and well oxygenated water. So you can get really fancy on a Hillstream setup. You can do a river manifold system where you have power heads that blow water from one end of the tank, and you have returns over here, so the water's just going there, getting sucked down under the substrate and coming back around unidirectionally. And those are really cool. But you don't have to do that. A nice fast flowing sponge filter, especially with the easy flow on it so that it's kind of directed the correct way instead of all just bubbling up, you get some flow horizontally, works really well for these fish that like high flow environments like these Hillstream loaches. Now, the cherry barbs in here don't like a lot of high flow. So as you can see, they've kind of decided to go down in these pockets where the flow is less fast. So the flow up top is really high, so they kind of are hanging mid-water, and they'll hang on either side of this rock pile here. So this works well for all the species in this aquarium. The substrate in this tank is just a fine silica sand that I get at Ace Hardware, and I know people want to know which sand it is. I will drive to Ace Hardware and get a picture so you guys can see the actual sand. Then there's just some rocks in here, a nice pile. That's important because the demon eye Hillstream loaches really like to be up a little bit, and we'll talk about that more as we get into the specific fish. The lighting's really simple. I just use these cheap 3-foot lights from Home Depot. They grow plants, you can see the fish. They're not fancy. They're 15 bucks a piece though, and if you get 2 or 3 of them, you get a nice bright tank with a lot of light for 45 bucks. Now, I'm not recommending that. I'm doing that because I have this warehouse full of tanks, so we have fairly cheap lighting. If I spent 100 bucks per light, I'd go broke. So, it's good to invest in a nice high quality light if you want, and it could look a lot better. You can adjust the colors and all that. But if you want to save some shekels, those little Home Depot lights for 15 bucks work just fine. So that's the setup. It's really, really simple. So let's talk about the fish. The first one I want to talk to you about is the purple sailfin gudgeon. So we're going to go from the bottom up. The purple sailfin gudgeons tend to hang out on the bottom more. The demon eyes like to hang out in the rocks, and the cherry barbs kind of hang out in the water, not attached to the substrate. So let's feed them real quick. On the B-roll, you'll see I'm feeding them big, extreme massive pellets. I like that because it's water stable and it stays in there for a long time. And when I'm filming up close, it's all compact, so you don't get a lot of little particles in the water column. But for this, today what I want to feed them is the Aquarium Co-op Easy Community Floating Pellet. The reason is I like the ingredient list. Let me read this to you. So it's first ingredient, whole anchovy meal. Second ingredient, whole krill meal. Third ingredient, whole shrimp meal. And after all that, you finally get to your first binder, which is wheat flour. Then you get some fish oil, some yeast, vitamins, and minerals. So a lot of fish foods, the binder is much higher up in the ingredient list. And the binder is something which holds the food together, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of nutritional value for the fish. And they kind of pass it through their digestive tract, and it kind of creates waste in the aquarium. So I like this because the krill is a good attractant. Fish like to eat that. And it's mostly nice protein sources. There's 3 good protein sources before you even get to the binder. So let's feed them real quick so they can eat while we're talking the rest of this video. So both the purple sailfin gudgeons and the demon eye Hillstream loaches are benthic, so they like to be on surfaces. They aren't free swimming much. They're down on the substrate or exploring rocks and things like that. Whereas the demon eye Hillstream loaches like to hang out in the rocks. They're kind of the next level up. And they'll come down too, but generally gudgeon's on the bottom, Hillstream's up in the rock pile itself. So that's important to know, because then you can have 2 separate, little niches for each species and keep both of them happy. So the genus Microphysogobio has been around for a long time, 1934. This species, tafangensis, was described in 1936, but it did not show up in the aquarium hobby in the West until 1920. So this is one that has been known to science for a long time, but aquarists are only just now getting their first opportunity to play with it. And what a fish it is. It grows to 4 or 5 inches, and it's the only fish in the genus Microphysogobio that has really impressive finnage in color. The rest of the fish in there, it's like Gara, right? Most of the Gara, they're great algae eaters, they're good tank mates, but they're kind of brown. And then you have the panda Gara, and it's like, oh, that's a pretty one. Most of the fish in the Microphysogobio are kind of like those other Gara species. They're pretty brown. But then you get this one, the purple sailfin gudgeon, and it's named that because it's got this beautiful sailfin on the males, and they develop these nice red and purple colors that really make them stand out. So it's by far the prettiest of the entire genus, as far as anyone that I'm aware of anyway. And when I first saw pictures of it in the Amazonas magazine, they absolutely blew my mind. So it's really nice to have them in person and see their beauty firsthand. We found them very hardy. They're easy to keep. They'll eat any food pretty much, as long as it's on the bottom. I find them generally to be very outgoing. They're not shy, and they're displaying all the time, raising that dorsal fin, dancing around, saying, I'm the boss. It's easy to tell the difference between males and females. Males have that really big, beautiful purple sail fin, and the females don't. The females don't have much color. And the good news is right now here at dancfish.com, we have both. We can sell you pairs. And these have been bred in aquariums in the United States. There's a thread on the Aquarium Co-op forum. I believe it's White Cloud Dynasty has a thread there where they've showed how they're breeding them. Shows the adults, shows the babies. So there's actually some breeding going on. There's not a lot of detail on the process yet, but it has started. So it's possible to breed these in aquariums, which is great because they're hard to come by. Now this species comes from a temperate area. It comes from the source waters of the Qiantang River in China. And that's just north of Taiwan if you look at a map. The highs in that area are like 86 degrees or so. The cools are all the way down to like 35 degrees. Average temperatures are somewhere around in the 60s. So very similar to temperatures here in the United States. So the Qiantang River is a biodiverse river. It's a really important river system. It contains 10% of all of China's freshwater fish species, and 24 of them are endemic to that river. They only exist in that river. There's 184 species in the Qiantang River, and unfortunately, there's about 17 that have been introduced. That includes bluegill, mosquito fish, tilapia. And so as those species proliferate, they put pressure on the native species. And there's other problems with the area too. The river's been dammed, there's pollution, they mined sand from that river, which can harm it. So there's concern about that river system. It's the largest river in the province. It can take a little abuse, but it's getting a lot of abuse. Now, fortunately for the purple sailfin gudgeon, it lives in the headwaters. So it lives up close to the source of this river. And so up there, not a lot of damage has been done yet. So this is currently a species of least concern on the UICN list. So hopefully it's far enough out of the way, kind of up in the headwaters there, that the species remains intact and that habitat remains clean. But you never know. So I'm really glad that they've started breeding them here in the United States. Some hobbyists have started figuring it out. What I love most about this species is it's beautiful, it's outgoing, it displays all the time, and so far it's really easy to take care of. And they're peaceful. They'll display a lot, they'll spar a lot, which is fun to watch, but I've yet to see any damage. So I think that this is going to be a really popular aquarium fish if we can breed them in the numbers necessary to sustain the demand. So here at dansfish.com, we get really excited when we see rare fish like the purple sailfin gudgeon and like the demon eye Hillstream loach that we're about to talk about. Also, when we get good quality fish like these cherry barbs, they're common, but they're super quality, and that's fun to see too. We work really hard to make sure that the fish we obtain are humanely sourced, maintained humanely, and transported to our customers really carefully. They get 5-star treatment. Our mission basically is to make sure the fish get to our customers so healthy that they're going to thrive for the customer long term. In fact, we're so confident that that's going to happen that we guarantee our fish will arrive alive. We 100% guarantee that. If they don't, we'll refund the cost of the fish and the shipping associated with the fish. So any money you paid towards that fish or getting it shipped to you is refunded in real time. We guarantee they'll get to you in good shape. Over the last 12 months, over 99% of the fish that we've sent to our customers have arrived alive and in good shape, as reported by our customers. That's what this hard work has resulted in. So if you see something you like, these fish are available at dansfish.com. If you're new to us, if you haven't experienced the Dan difference, give us a try. I think you'll be really happy. The next fish I want to talk about here is the demon eye Hillstream loach, the Erromyzon compactus. These guys up in the rocks here. I think these are stunning. I love the red demon eyes down their body. They're called that because that's what the native folks call them, because of those bright red spots down the body. I guess they remind them of a demon's eye. And so that beautiful coloration is how they got that kind of sinister name. But whatever they're called, we found them to be extremely hardy, outgoing, fun to watch, they're active, and they're very easy to feed as well. They'll eat anything that falls down to the substrate. And when they're not actively eating the food you feed them, they'll be grazing on the rocks and the hard surfaces of your aquarium, scraping off biofilm and algae. In fact, as you can see, there's a little bit of a green tint to these rocks. We have some heavy, powerful lighting on this tank because we're trying to grow algae so that they can actually, eat on it, feed on it. And they do a great job of keeping it under control, even though we've got a whole bunch of light on this tank. Now, that's not strictly necessary. You can feed algae wafers and things like that instead of growing an algae tank. But I really like watching them feed on the natural algae and biofilm. And I think it helps their diet. It's what they feed on in nature. Even if you don't have really strong light though, your aquarium will grow quite a bit of algae and biofilm. So this isn't really necessary. I was just trying to duplicate their natural habitat a little bit. So what is their natural habitat? They come from the Bache River. It's just a few miles south of the Chinese border in Vietnam. So this species is from Vietnam, and they were collected in water that was a max depth of about 1.5 feet. And the habitat looks like a pristine trout stream. If you go way up in the mountains so far that there's hardly any plants anymore, then you have these streams that are just full of rocks and boulders and things, and not much in the way of plants in the water, but it's flowing rapidly and it's crystal clear. That's what their habitat looks like. You can read the description of these fish, and there's pictures of that habitat. So really nice, pristine habitat, which is important to keep in mind because even though they're very hardy fish, fish that come from those types of habitats tend to be quite sensitive to nitrogenous waste, to ammonia. So it's best to keep these fish in a tank that's been around a while, that's mature, isn't going to experience spikes in ammonia when you add new fish, isn't going to experience parameter fluctuations, and also nice mature tanks tend to have more of the biofilm and algae in them that these like to graze on between feedings. Now that's literally all the information I could find on this fish. I know it's from that river system, I know that's close to China, I know it's a pristine system, or a pristine area where they're collected, and that's it. There's no information available on these guys. They are brand new. I've never seen them before. What I do know though is so far they're easy to keep and really fun aquarium fish. The main thing I've learned keeping them, besides that they eat everything and they're easy, is they really do enjoy this rock pile here. That seems to be something that draws them. They'll go down on the substrate to feed, but they want to be up. So give them some places to get up off the substrate and to play. Give them some surfaces up there, little nooks and crannies they can explore, and they seem to be endlessly entertained by that. They're not like some fish that you see in a tank that look bored. These guys are always exploring, always grazing. They love their rock pile. But besides that, I haven't found that they have any special needs besides, keep the water clean and they like it well oxygenated. So I think this is one of the nicest Hillstreams that come out lately. I think that Hillstream loaches are going to blow up soon, like the L-number plecos did back in the day. There's so many beautiful, neat ones that we just don't know of yet, and we're starting to be able to get access to some of these, like these demon eye Hillstream loaches. And I think that's going to become a hobby all in itself, just like the L-number pleco hobby did back in the day. So I'm really excited to have these, and I think they're going to take the world by storm. I think they're going to be a very popular Hillstream loach because of their behavior, their color, and their hardiness. The last species we're going to talk about today is the red cherry barbs in here. But these are a special red cherry barb. These are the long fin cherry barbs. And these were bred and raised in Europe by people that have been working this strain for a long time. They've been developing the red in there, so it's a nice deep red. And they've been making sure that the finnage stays nice. A lot of the long fin fish, if you just breed for the long fins, but you're not careful about the quality of the fins, you can pretty soon get some pretty ratty fins in some of the strains. These are very consistent. They've done a great job making sure that the fins are not just long, but nicely shaped. So, beautiful strain. Now the cherry barb has been around forever. It's an ideal aquarium fish. It's been popular for decades because it is beautiful, it is peaceful, it is not very expensive, it is easy to breed, and it's very easy to keep. So the fish farms breed these in massive numbers, which keeps the cost down. So great aquarium fish. But there's things about this fish which are really interesting that you might not know about. One is that they can find their relatives through chemical secretions. So juveniles want to school with their relatives, with their clutch mates. And to find their clutch mates, they secrete chemicals that they use to identify each other. And they know this because they've run experiments where they took different spawns of cherry barbs and separated portions of those spawns. And then when they put unrelated fish, juveniles, and related fish back together, they showed a preference for their kin, for their relatives. Not only that, but the preference was so strong that there was no discrimination between relatives that had been raised separately for a long time and then were reintroduced to ones that they were already familiar with, to the relatives they had been growing up with the whole time. So they appear to select for kin, for the fish they want to school around with as juveniles, through these chemical signals. And it's just a really interesting thing. I'm not sure exactly what the advantage of schooling with your own relatives over other fish of the same species are. I don't know why that's an advantage, but it's clear from this study that they do that, so it must be important to them for some reason. There's two types of cherry barbs in the wild. These come from Sri Lanka, that's the only place they're found. And there's one which has a dark brown stripe from the tip of the snout through the edge of the tail. And then there's another one which they call the ruby red, which doesn't have the brown stripe. That was in a scientific article that was written about these fish. But I'm not sure how accurate that is. I could be wrong. I've never been to Sri Lanka to collect the different populations. But what I see in the aquarium is all fish which have a brown stripe that starts at the snout and goes to the tail, unless they color in a certain way. When they really color up, that brown stripe kind of disappears. And then they're just like a bright ruby red fish. So I've never seen any or pictures of any that didn't have the little brown up by the snout towards the eye. So I don't know for sure if the folks that wrote that article and described these different populations in the wild were seeing actual different color forms, or we're seeing some fish that were more in breeding mode and were that bright ruby red versus others that weren't. These have the brown stripe. Every cherry barb I've ever seen in the aquarium hobby has the brown stripe until it really fires up. And then it disappears and they're that bright ruby red. So I've got a question. I'd have to go there and collect them to be sure, but I wonder if that's true. I wonder if there are two color forms, or if there's only one, and just, you know, in different moods it looks different. It can adjust its coloration. This study that I'm citing, what they did is they went to 6 different locations in the wild to try to understand their breeding preferences and stuff like that. And what they found is this is a very adaptable fish. So let me read you the parameters they found in these 6 different natural sites. So the TDS ranged from 8.5 to 22.7. The temperature ranged from 80 to 89. And I'm curious if that was right at the edge of the water where it gets really, really hot, or if it was deeper in the water where the fish might be. Because in tanks, they do great in the mid-70s. So I'm just curious. Or maybe it was a time of year where it was really hot. I'm not sure. It seems really high to me though, 80 to 89. But anyway, there was 9 degrees fluctuation where they measured. The pH was 5.06 to 7.1. So wide range of pH tolerance. It seems like that tolerance of wide ranges in nature is reflected in the aquarium, because this is a hardy fish. You can keep it in soft acidic water, you can keep it in hard alkaline water, and it does well. This is one of the easiest fish to keep in aquariums. They eat everything. And the other thing, I know I briefly touched on this earlier, but it's worth talking about how peaceful they are. Barbs have a reputation for being aggressive and being fin nippers and such. A lot of that comes from the tiger barbs that are so popular. Tiger barbs can be nippy, especially if they're not kept in large groups. But cherry barbs are a very peaceful barb. I've never seen them bother another fish, even a fish with longer fins. So if you're put off from keeping barbs because you've heard they're aggressive, just know that that's not true of all barbs, and that's especially not true of this barb. These are peaceful, small, ideal aquarium fish. If any of these fish tickle your fancy, they're all available at dansfish.com. We make our living by selling fish. We're on a mission to humanely source, maintain, and transport the fish to our customers so that our customers get fish that are actually healthy and will thrive for them long term. And we work really hard to make that happen. We guarantee that all the fish from dansfish.com will get to you alive. If they don't, we'll refund the cost of the fish and the cost of the shipping associated with that fish. That's how confident we are that our fish will get to you in good shape. If you want to know more about aquarium fish, we do a live stream every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time here at the Dan's Fish channel on YouTube, where you can ask questions about keeping aquarium fish and breeding aquarium fish and setting up aquariums and how to ship fish, about how to run a fish business, anything you want to know about freshwater aquarium fish, we're here to talk about. So hope to see you there. Until next time, have a good one. Bye-bye.